Hey everybody, it's Adam Ringler and welcome to this YouTube channel, right? If you regularly tune in or you're a subscriber to this channel, then you know that I talk about everything from the Former Athlete Society, my school-based community group, to sports science, to strength and conditioning. All of this is material that I love to share. It's what I love to talk about. It's what I want to bring to the masses. So if that is the case and you are a subscriber, then welcome back. And if you're not, then let me tell you why I think you should subscribe. I share information related to continuing your athletic development, whether you're past your playing days and your professional ones. If you're a sports scientist trying to get smarter, stronger, and apply technology to the sport that you love, then this is a great channel for you because I geek out talking about performance technology, data, and everything in between. If you are a strength and conditioning coach, then I welcome you back to this channel because I also am a strength and conditioning coach, and I love nothing more than being in a weight room and applying the performance side to the technology side to the continuous development side. So nonetheless, thank you for being a part of this channel. Now, that said, today I want to talk about something I love talking about, and that is performance technologies as it relates to our force plates. We know that force plates have become kind of a go-to piece of tech for tracking readiness and performance in team sport. They're fast, they're efficient, and they give us a flood of data. But sometimes what's overlooked, especially in women's basketball, is the value of digging into the eccentric phase of the counter-movement jump. I see this all the time. People geek out about relative peak power or the concentric aspect and jump height or just peak power. It doesn't have to be relative peak power. But sometimes they miss the underlying eccentric component that is so important in the game of women's basketball. It's not just how high an athlete can get, but what's actually happening on the way down. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper to those topics today. In most jump tests, we tend to focus on the concentric phase, peak force, maybe jump height, maybe rate of force development if we're lucky, but that's kind of only half the story. I think there's more that we can dig in. The eccentric metrics, that's where things really get interesting, especially when we're talking about readiness or how well an athlete can absorb and redirect force, which quite frankly, in basketball is everything, right? That's so critical. So we have to dive in deeper to understanding that sort of breaking element of the counter movement jump. And let's be real, basketball is a stop and go game. We know this. A ton of what we ask our athletes to do is rely on their ability to decelerate and to break, right? To change direction, to land from awkward angles, things like that, absorb contact without breaking down, both literally and figuratively. So that said, that's so critically important for us when and why we're looking at eccentric-oriented parameters, like eccentric rate of force development, like braking impulse, and even eccentric deceleration time. All of those things are important. All of those things can give us early signals, right? Signals that maybe an athlete isn't fully ready or isn't recovered the way that we think that they should be or that they are. So that said, what are we actually really looking at, right? Eccentric braking force. How much an athlete can produce, right? How much force can an athlete produce while lowering into the jump, right? Think of this as sort of like the anti-gravity system, right? Eccentric force development. How quickly can they apply that force? And that one's huge. It's not just how much braking force, but how fast do they actually hit the brakes? Impulse. Basically the total force applied over time, right? High braking impulse can be a sign of control, but also neuromuscular intent. Deceleration time, how long it takes an athlete to actually absorb force in reverse direction. And a sluggish decel time, that might tell you that they're not ready to hit max outputs today, or that fatigue is setting in behind the scenes, right? This is why this context matters so much for women's basketball, right? So why is this relevant on the women's side of the game? Well, a couple reasons. First one, we know that ACL injury rates are significantly higher in women's college basketball. A lot of that comes down to mechanics and landing and deceleration and neuromuscular control under fatigue or load. So if we're only looking at vertical output, we're missing the stuff that actually keeps them on the floor. Eccentric variables help us flag red lights before they become injuries. We might see reduced braking forces after a heavy lift day or slower eccentric RFD during a transitional portal visit week. Little windows into how their system is handling stress, even if an athlete feels fine. I'll give you another quick example. We once had a guard who was hitting super high numbers concentrically, right? Great numbers concentrically. Jump height, consistent. Power output, solid. But her eccentric RFD had quietly, slowly dropped off for over 2 weeks. Turns out she's been overloading in practice. And, we sometimes program mandatory recovery lifts. Sometimes we advocate recovery lifts and recovery strategies. And she wasn't doing all the recovery aspects that she needed to do. So no pain, no complaints, but the force plate data showed a different story. So what did we do? We just we adjusted, we added some eccentric control work through the flywheels and unloaded some of her training. And by the following week, she was back where she needed to be. No issues, nothing, right? And that's the kind of subtle but powerful impact and insight that you get from force plates. You just don't get that from always watching film or tracking workloads. So that said, this is the bigger point. These eccentric markers, while they're sometimes maybe not the most obvious things, they give us an added layer of depth, especially when you pair them with subjective data or the athlete telling you, right? They help us understand if the athlete system is ready to handle force and not just produce it. And in women's basketball, especially for females or young athletes, maybe even veteran athletes as well, that kind of feedback loop can literally keep somebody on the court when it matters the most. Just to wrap everything up, just to share a little bit more, force plates aren't just for measuring jump height. We know this, right? When you start digging into the eccentric phases, or eccentric phase of the counter movement jump, you can open up a whole new world of insight that you otherwise just can't really understand or dive in just by looking at the concentric alone or just by your eyeballs. You need those force plates. And if you care about readiness, recovery, or injury risk or anything like that, then helping athletes move and stop better matters. So don't skip the downward phase. There's gold in that data. You just have to kind of mine it and you have to look for it. I love force plates, right? I will be the first coach, that put hands on a Bible or something and say that I love using force plates in my practice. As a strength coach, as a sports scientist, I think they offer amazing insights. That said, if you only look at one performance variable, whether it's peak power or concentric force, rate of force development, or concentric RFD or anything like that, then you might be missing some really subtle aspects of diving in a little bit deeper in understanding the eccentric aspects of that counter movement jump. There's a lot there that you can really dive into deeply. If any of this resonated with you, if you love this material, if you hate this material, if you're like, Adam, you're just geeking out, it's too much, just keep it about the weight room, keep it about iron and culture and mentality, blah, 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 I can talk to you about that. Now, I love that stuff, don't get me wrong. I just like to be strategic with the way I train, right? I want to be efficacious with our time. I want to be very strategic with the intentions and the efforts and what we do within the weight room walls, right? So I'm not going to end up wasting time focusing on one thing, X, when I should be focusing on Y or Z, right? So if an athlete presents with a problem, right, I want to present with the solution that addresses that. I don't want to waste time searching for other things. If you like this sort of sports science material, let me know. I'll do more of this. I'll share this on social media or Instagram or YouTube or anywhere else. But nonetheless, I appreciate you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you like it, like this, subscribe to this channel, leave some comments below about how you utilize force plates in your practice and what you get out of it as a coach, as a practitioner, as anything. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Until next time.